Do you ever wonder how your parents grew up without technology? How did they have fun? What did they do? And it's honestly so crazy that we're even asking that question. If you really take a second to look at it, it's pretty obvious that there's a lot of things to do. But in the modern day, there are so many bad habits. There's so many addictions. There's so many things around us that give us instant hits of dopamine that it has completely fried our brains and fried our motivation and just fried our reward system. If you just go on social media, if you go on TikTok, if you go on Instagram, I'm willing to bet like 90% of the stuff you see out there is probably promoting instant gratification activities, whether it be pornography, whether it be drugs, whether it be literally the damn device itself is instant gratification. I think we've completely fried our brains with the instant gratification that we have all around us on a daily, day-to-day basis. This damn phone right here, instant gratification. The internet, instant gratification. Pornography, drugs, the food. Goddamn, the food, man. They're trying to kill us with some of this damn food. All the sugar they put in it, the GMOs, it's all instant gratification. It's all supposed to give us hits of dopamine. And so what I want to talk about today is why you, watching this video, it's probably why you clicked on it, why you can't seem to find enjoyment in doing things, why you can't seem to find enjoyment in doing things that require hard work. And before I get into the tools that you can use to overcome these problems, to start enjoying doing hard work, to leverage dopamine in your favor, there's a couple things that we got to understand about how this all works. So instant gratification, I'm sure you guys have heard that term used a lot, especially if you're a veteran in the self-improvement community, right? All these bad habits, all these bad substances give us instant gratification. But what that really is, it's just an instant hit of dopamine. So I'm going to go through a brief description of how the dopamine system works. But if you guys want a more scientific and better articulated explanation of how this works, Andrew Huberman has a great podcast on dopamine, and I'll link it in the description down below if you want to check that out. But I'm going to try to put this in simplest terms. So this is how our dopamine system works. We have a baseline level of dopamine, right? And in our dopamine system, we have dopamine peaks and we have dopamine troughs. Dopamine peaks is the things that get us motivated, the things that gives us the hits of dopamine, and the troughs is the unpleasant feeling or feelings of pain that we experience when we don't have that thing, right? And so we basically experience two dopamine quote unquote highs when we desire something, right? So let's take something, for example, like getting 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. Our first hit of dopamine comes when we desire the thing. So we don't only get a hit of dopamine when we actually get something, we actually also get a hit of dopamine when we desire something. So when we want those 100,000 subscribers, we get a hit of dopamine, and that is basically what results in what we know as motivation. That hit in dopamine motivates us to go get that desired outcome or that desired substance, whatever the case is. And so then our dopamine dips down into the trough when we don't have that thing that we want. And once we get the thing, it peaks back up. That's kind of really all you have to understand, is that when we want something, we have a desire to go get it, and that's when we get a hit of dopamine, resulting in motivation. Then our dopamine comes down below our baseline. It doesn't go to our baseline. Once we're pursuing the thing before we acquire the thing that we want, it goes below baseline. And then again, once we get the thing that we want, we get another hit of dopamine. And after we acquire that thing, our dopamine again drops back below baseline levels and then slowly levels off back to baseline. And the whole process kind of just repeats in a repeating cycle. So that's kind of the basics of the dopamine system and how it works. And what you need to understand about yourself and your body is that your brain wants dopamine. Your brain wants to feel good. Your brain wants hits of dopamine. And it does not really differentiate how you get the dopamine. Your brain only feels the chemical reaction of you getting the dopamine. It cannot differentiate, okay, I got this hit of dopamine doing something good versus I got this hit of dopamine doing something bad. All your brain understands is a hit of dopamine and how good it makes you feel, right? How high that peak is and how quickly you get to that peak. Now, here's where we get into the instant gratification activities. What you need to understand about the human brain and the human body in general is that it wants to expend the least amount of resources possible to get its desired outcome. So again, like I just said, your brain wants dopamine, and it would prefer to exert the least amount of resources possible to get that dopamine. The main thing is to keep you alive, keep you going, keep you healthy, yada, yada, yada. That's really all your body cares about. Maybe I'm wrong about that. You guys can let me know in the comment section below. But what I'm understanding from what I've read about this is that your brain just craves that hit of dopamine. Your brain doesn't necessarily want that activity that you're doing. It wants the hit of dopamine. And so with these instant gratification, these instant dopamine rewarding activities that most of the time are bad for us, these inclines are extremely steep and the peaks are usually extremely high. Because of that, the troughs or the dips in these are extremely steep and low as well. And so by consistently engaging in these instant gratification, instant dopamine rewarding activities, you are training your brain. You are training your brain to learn that this is the way that it is going to get dopamine. Your brain does not say, okay, I got dopamine by watching porn, so, I have to limit what I'm doing. Your brain only understands I'm getting a hit of dopamine, I feel good. You're doing crack, all your brain understands is I'm feeling good by smoking this crack, and it's pretty easy, it's pretty effortless. All your brain sees is that hit of dopamine and the lack of effort and resources that it had to expend to get that hit of dopamine. If you're consistently engaging in these habits or using these substances, you are essentially training your brain to learn that, oh, this is how I get my dopamine. There's no way to shut it off. There's no way to tell your brain, stop looking for dopamine. I don't want it. It's just not possible. And the reason that you can't find pleasure in doing hard work, or the reason that you find certain things boring, is because you've trained your brain to get hits of dopamine instantly by engaging in these activities, whatever they are, for a consistent period of time. And because you've engaged in these activities or used these substances so regularly, your brain knows that I can get my hit of dopamine by doing this and exerting the least amount of energy, not having to wait any sort of time, not having to put in physical work. So of course, why would your brain, why would you be locked in on working hard, focused on working hard? Why would your brain use its resources to work hard when it knows, hey man, I could pull up Baddie Hub right now and get the same hit of dopamine as grinding for 4, 5, 6 months to get 10,000 subscribers on YouTube to get the same exact feeling? Why would I do that when I could pull up Baddie Hub 10 seconds later I nut and I feel great? Why would I put in weeks and months and time and effort and energy and spend money and all this stuff to get the same exact feeling or the same exact quote unquote hit of dopamine? The same chemical is released. Why would I do that when I know I could just do it by, typing in whatever XXXX Tentacion X videos on my phone? And so if you're not finding enjoyment in doing hard work, it's not because you don't like it. It's because you've completely fried your brain and your dopamine reward system. You've trained your brain to only accept instant hits of dopamine. Anything that requires hard work, why would your brain do it? Why would your brain do it when it knows literally every day or every other day or how often you do this stuff that it can get hits of dopamine by doing something that requires zero effort? And so what we need to do is to reset our brain, retrain our brain to get hits of dopamine in different ways. And a lot of you that are suffering from some of these addictions or engaged in these bad habits right now, it may be hard to believe what I'm about to say, but you guys need to trust me on this because it's just science. I hope that's convincing. I don't even know. The hit of dopamine that you get from putting in the hard work, achieving something, pursuing a goal and getting it, making progress, engaging in hobbies and activities that are beneficial for your health and long-term goals are just as good, if not better, feeling than the hits of dopamine that you get with these bad habits that you engage in. And so I'm not here to judge what things you can do because I believe most things in moderation can be beneficial. If you are able to remain abstinent from these things on a consistent basis, your brain will not all of a sudden, I played video games for one day, I'm addicted now. It does not work like that. You will not corrupt your brain by engaging in these things every so often. Your brain will not learn and adapt a pattern of behavior if you do these things once a month. Now, obviously, some things are worse for you than others, and you don't want to engage in them at all. Things like hard drugs, and even for me, pornography at all. If you can abstain from it completely, I recommend it. But if you do not engage in these things on a consistent basis, you're not going to suffer the consequences as harshly. All you have to do is give it time. Your dopamine will bounce back to baseline levels in due time. That's why when you get off these bad habits for a certain amount of time, you'll start to feel good again. That's why the first couple of days are extremely hard. Day 1, day 2, day 3 is extremely hard to abstain from these things. But once you get to day 14, it becomes easier because your brain starts to understand, okay, I'm not getting that instant hit of dopamine anymore by doing these activities. I got to find it somewhere else. I got to start putting in hard work here or doing something else, or hopefully not, but engaging in another bad habit. And we don't want to do that, but your brain has to find some other outlet to get that hit of dopamine. Your dopamine levels will bounce back to baseline if you just give it some time. But if you're engaging in these activities on a daily basis, on every other day basis, just a consistent basis, you do not allow your dopamine levels to bounce back to normal. And every time we engage in these activities with these steep inclines, with these instant peaks, the troughs, the drops are going to be huge. And it also is going to drop your baseline level even lower because of these steep peaks and these steep troughs. So the number one thing we want to be cognizant of is avoiding things that give us instant hits of dopamine or sharply raise dopamine levels. And if you do engage in those things, if you engage in something like drinking, if you engage in something like video games, you must be aware that you will be in an amotivated state, or as we said with the dopamine system, you will be in that trough after engaging in that instantly gratifying activity. It will return to baseline if you do not continue to engage in that activity. All you have to do is give it some time. Obviously, some things might take longer than others. Playing a video game, maybe a few hours, if that, right? Using a drug, maybe a day or two. It all depends on what you're doing and how often you're doing it and whatnot. But you will return to baseline levels if you do not continue engaging in that thing. So that's why I tell people, doing things in moderation is okay. If you understand that you may feel a little shitty, may feel a little demotivated, you will bounce back to normal in due time. And so what if you're already in a vicious cycle of addiction, or a vicious cycle of substance use, or a vicious cycle of engaging in these things that instantly raise your dopamine, instant gratification? The first thing I recommend, and this is something that has helped me tremendously, is that you want to focus on not doing the thing that sharply increases your levels of dopamine. A lot of times in the past, when I was suffering with some of these addictions, I would try to overcompensate by saying, okay, I'm going to stop doing the bad thing that I'm doing, and I'm going to start doing the good thing to get that hit of dopamine that requires hard work. What you want to put your whole focus on, and what you really want to take pride in and pleasure in, is just not doing the thing. It's really hard to go from getting your dopamine in the snap of a finger from whatever addiction or bad habit that you're engaging in, to putting in hard work and having to wait for it over a long period of time. What we first need to do is reset our baseline level of dopamine, because if you're trying to stop a bad habit and just start doing the good habit, you're trying to skip a step. You're trying to go from step 1 to step 3. You're trying to get from here to here. We need to first rebound to our baseline levels so that we can use that as a springboard to start doing the hard work. If you're somebody that's struggling with an addiction or a substance or a habit, don't feel bad because you're not doing the good habit. You just need to put your focus on not doing the bad habit. I don't care if you sit on your bed all day and stare at the fucking wall, right? As long as you are not engaging in that destructive habit or using that destructive substance that is giving you that instant hit of dopamine, you are winning. You got to give yourself a pat on the back. That's a W. You got to look at that as the victory. You can't think of the victory as, I didn't do the bad thing, but I didn't really do anything productive today. That's okay. We place too much of an emphasis on, you got to be hustling and grinding and this, that, and the third, when some people are just struggling to get up out of bed and not engage in their addictions. If you got to go 30 days of doing absolutely nothing but staring at your fucking wall, but you're not engaging in any of these harmful habits, that's what you need to do, because in the long run, it'll be more beneficial for you to do that. So at first, we need to at least untrain our brain from getting those things. You might be depressed. You might be upset. You might be irritable. You might be all of these things when you're trying to stop these addiction. I mean, it's kind of a given that stuff happens when somebody tries to come off a drug or come off a bad habit, that they're going to be irritable, upset, depressed. You need to expect all that, and you need to take solace in victories of you not doing that thing. Day 1's going to be hard. Day 2's going to be hard. 3, 4, 5, they're going to be hard. But once you get to day 14, day 20, it's going to be a lot easier. And then you can start focusing on doing the good stuff. You're like, okay, you know what? This is not really a problem for me anymore. And you might still feel urges to do those habits. You might still feel urged to go on Pornhub and look up Violet Myers XXX whatever. But the more days that you stack of not doing that stuff, the further removed you are from doing that thing. Your brain is going to be like, wow, I haven't done this in a long time. I'm not getting any hits of dopamine from it. Okay, I got to find another way. So now I'm going to get into the niche tips that a lot of you might not have heard of in order to motivate yourself to do these hard things once you've kind of rebounded your level of dopamine. Because even once you've, rebounded your levels of dopamine to baseline, even once you stop engaging in these bad habits, it's still going to be hard to do a lot of the things because they require hard work. They require effort. Sometimes they require faith and belief. So what you need to do, if you're feeling unmotivated, if you still can't find yourself doing the hard work, the way to circumvent this, the way to rebound your levels of motivation is to think about or do something worse / harder than the thing that you actually want to do. So let me give you an example. Let's say you don't want to go into work, right? Let's say you're just like, I can't do this. I hate my job. I hate being there. I hate the people there. I hate everything. I have no motivation to go into work, right? A lot of people probably feel this way. A lot of you watch this video may feel this way now, but you still go into work. Why is that? Well, it's because the prospect of losing your job, not being able to make money, not being able to pay for your home, not being able to buy stuff, not having a secure job, right? That is worse, quote unquote, more painful for you than the pain of getting up in the morning and going into work, right? That's why you still continue to go to work, even though you may hate it, even though you may hate everything about it, because the pain of being broke, the pain of not having a job, the pain of being fired, that is more painful to you than actually going into work. So when you're procrastinating on something, when you got to get this project done and you just don't feel like doing it, it's a lot of work, think of something worse or put yourself through something worse, harder, or challenging. And I would recommend everybody keep a list of 3, 4, 5 things that they have to do that they really don't want to do. Now, I'm not even saying that you have to complete these things. You may hate it so much that you'll be like, oh my God, at this point, I'd rather just goddamn do this project. Do you ever wonder why college kids or high school kids get assigned homework, a week in advance, but wait till 3 hours before the paper is due to start working on it? Do you ever wonder why once that pressure hits, once they see that their work is due in 3 hours, they turn into William Shakespeare, they turn into the greatest author of our generation? Is because the pain of getting an F grade or failing the class or disappointing their parents or whatever the case is, whatever would happen if they don't submit this assignment, the pain of that is worse than the pain of them having to sit down at their desk, open a Word document, start doing research, type up a 600-page essay, all in 3 hours. The pain of not getting a good grade or being a disappointment or failing the class or whatever the consequences are of not doing this thing is worse than actually sitting down and having to do it. Now, I don't want to get morbid on here or anything like that, but sometimes this can be helpful for me, and something that I personally think about a lot of times when I'm feeling amotivated to do certain things is I think about my family, my future family, and my mother. I think, what if my mom's getting up there in age now, and so I think, what if my mom, something happens to my mom, God forbid, knock on wood, but what if something happens and I don't get to pay her back for all the great things she's done for me, or I don't get to show her the person I become, right? That scares me. The fear of that, the pain of that thought is more scary to me than having to sit down and edit a video or go to the gym or walk into the office and do work. That thought alone is scarier to me than actually having to do the work that I'm avoiding. And so these are the type of strategies that I use when I'm feeling motivated to do my work. I think of all the possible consequences of not doing my work, or the possible consequences of engaging in these bad activities. I hope you guys found some enjoyment. I hope you guys found this video to be helpful in any sort of way. If you did, drop me a like, drop a sub, share the video. Yeah, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. I wish you well in your journeys.